Welcome back to Laugh or Go Crazy Book Talk, The Shack by William Paul Young, chapters 4 through 7. Now, Michelle, I just want to open up with saying, we have a little jazzier music. I wanted to keep everyone awake and, swaying to the music as we intro this podcast. I don't know how we're going to tackle chapters 4 through 7.
I was thinking the same thing. So much happened. Like, by the time I went to just revisit chapter 4, so it was fresh in my mind, I realized that they were just starting out at the lake. And by the end of chapter 6, they were like already in the shack.
Yeah.
So a lot has happened.
A lot has happened. This is the book. Now we're in it, baby. Yeah. And actually, it really opened up for me, chapters 6 and 7, where Mac actually is in the shack talking to God, who is a Jamaican woman. And Jesus is there and the Holy Spirit. And the three of them are welcoming Mac with open arms, and he feels a sense of love that he hasn't felt in a very long time. And it really makes – it's such a beautiful scene where, Mac doesn't know if this is like real, if he should be angry, if he should bring this thing up that he's feeling with God about Missy, or he's so overwhelmed with love that it's like a conflict for him, in that shack. And so there's so much going on, but rather than retell, what happened, because, everybody could read for themselves. But what moved you most, Michelle? I'm going to start with you.
There's really no one else.
Yeah, because there's no one else here.
It's really just me. So I think you're going to start end to end with me.
I want to start with you, Michelle, before I get to other people. How did it move you the way it moved me? Did you feel as though you felt a sense of love?
Well, you know what? I had to do a lot of rereading because the way, God is talking to Mac and what he's saying, it's like you really have to read it closely because when he talked about the bird, remember when the bird flew to the window?
The blue jay, I think it was.
Right. And then, God put out his hand with some grains in it and the bird flew over and he started telling Mac about like how a bird flies. And I actually have the part open here. And I was really, actually I don't have the part open here, but I was really thinking about that. Like he said, like birds are created to fly. Being grounded is a limitation from within. Mm. So love is like what we're supposed to feel and have. And when we don't feel as though we have it, we're limiting ourselves. It's like not the other way around.
Right.
Do you know, it was very interesting. Like freedom can't be, he was saying to Mac, freedom can't be forced. Mm-hmm. That, I don't know, I just found that very interesting.
Yeah, and he was really struck by how the bird just automatically came to God, to be fed. But, there were so many things going on through Mac's head. He was witnessing pure love, and then he had this rage in him. He had anger because of Missy, which he's like, it was like the elephant in the room type thing.
Yeah, he's confused. Like he's listening and feeling, but then he says how he like stops for a second and then he gets that feeling again of anger. And it was interesting to see when that happened.
Yep, go ahead.
The part where he says, living unloved is like clipping a bird's wings and removing its ability to fly. Not something I want for you. There's the rub. He didn't feel particularly loved at the moment. Mac, pain has a way of clipping our wings and keeping us from being able to fly. She waited a moment, allowing her words to settle. And if it's left unresolved for a very long time, you can almost forget that you were ever created to fly in the first place. And I think that's, I just was bringing it back to, like, people in general, a little bit removed from the book. But it's so true. Like, when you have felt hurt or pain for such a long time, you kind of live in that. And you forget that it doesn't have to be that way,
Yeah. No, I agree.
And it's nice how God is saying, like, he doesn't want that for Mac. And, it's not what he chose. And I don't know. It's so deep.
I love the scene. Oops, sorry. Excuse me, everyone. I love the scene where they're having lunch, I believe. Was it lunch or dinner? I think maybe dinner. And Jesus and the Holy Spirit and God was there, and obviously Mac. And they got to chit-chatting. He was just so overwhelmed by the fact that, God chit-chats, about nonsense. And, Jesus had dropped the bowl in the kitchen and broke it. And this, like, sticky porridge type batter fell all over the kitchen onto God's, clothes. And there was no blame, right? It was just they started laughing. They started laughing like, oh, humans are klutzy or humans are, clumsy. And, Jesus is the human, God in human form. And then they go to the table talking about, how clumsy Jesus is. And there was a sense of humor, which I love, because I feel as though, and I talked about this in chapters 1 through 3, I feel as though if I knew God had a sense of humor, like God gave me the sense of humor, so he must have a sense of humor. And so that casual, informal relationship that Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and God all have within each other, it's very informal.
Oh, definitely. And the way God was listening to the music, and he's like, whatever, he's singing and enjoying the music, and Mac is like, you listen to that? Like just assuming he only listens to religious music and gospel. And God is like, yeah, these people, this band they're not even born yet. Like he's listening to music, like in the future.
I know.
It was so cool. And I love that the reason God didn't come back as a male, show himself as a male to Mac was because he didn't think he can handle it with the way he had a relationship with his father. Because Mac, you know what I realized, Steve? Mac killed his father. I knew he put poison in his alcohol, but I didn't know for sure that he killed him. So he killed him and then he left. But I didn't know that because in this, in the chapters that we just read, it was confirmed. Like he said, am I being punished for what I did to my father? Am I being punished for whatever it is he thought he did wrong? Did you realize that he killed his father at 13?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So when I read that, I'm like, he did. Oh, okay. And I guess for him, he thought, well, maybe this is why this happened to Missy, because I sinned, and now I'm not getting it back, but sort of. But they say God, I've always heard this, even as a child. I think my mom always said, God doesn't punish. Because did you ever do something and then, see, God punished you, because you didn't do the right thing or whatever it was. And because I hear that now and then, and my answer always is, oh, God doesn't punish.
Right.
And
so, I didn't realize that, actually.
He poisoned him.
Right.
It's not clear in the beginning.
Right.
It just says he put something, I don't know what it was, in his drink, and then he left. So I said, I would imagine it was poison. He poisoned him. But I didn't know for sure until then he had said, am I being... He didn't use the word punished, but is this because I did this? Did this happen because I did that? So it's interesting. Because people could believe in karma too. So I don't know. It's kind of made me think.
Yeah, that's a good one. You picked up.
And I do believe in karma. I kind of do believe that you get what you give.
Well, that could be...
Not that he knew at 13. He was just trying to stay alive and, stop this madman from hurting his family, even though it was his father. He was still such a child and innocent. It's not like he murdered at an older age, I think it's different.
Right. And I just want to get back to that dinner scene for a minute. Did you pick up on the part where they start to chit-chat and Mac I think God or Jesus, I forgot, asked about Missy or something. Missy came up and Nan and the kids at dinner. And Mac totally forgot for a moment that, the injustice of Missy's death and how angry he was at God. But he started to tell God and Jesus about the love for his family. And he started to tell stories about his family. And then he stops and he says, well, you guys already know about this because you guys know everything. So it's silly for me to even continue. And God was like, no. He said, of course, Mac, I don't have the quote in front of me, but he's like, of course we know, but we're limiting ourselves to have a closer relationship with you. And we prefer to hear it from you. We want to experience your love for your daughter and your wife and your kids through your eyes. And Mac couldn't understand that. And he says, God was like, well, it's very similar to an adult-child relationship where when you're with a child, you limit yourself on purpose so that you could have a closer relationship. Meaning, if you're playing with a child, you may bring it down to the point where you could be on the same level, where the child could connect with you more. You're not showing your superiority over the child or how much smarter you are, how much more powerful you are. Because he said in a loving relationship, there is no power over the other person. And that, and he said that, we are limiting ourselves here at the table so that you and I could have a closer relationship. And so God encouraged Mac to tell about his family, even though they already knew everything.
You know what's funny? I don't remember reading this.
Yeah, it was.
What did you read up to?
I just read to the end of 7.
Oh, I only read to the end of 6.
Oh no, the assignment was to the end of 7.
That's why. Wait a minute. See, I'm always good to mess up.
No wonder you would.
Because I'm like, wait a minute. All right, maybe I missed that small part, and then you're going deeper and deeper. I'm like, no, I didn't read that. Okay, so we had. Wait a minute.
Your assignment was to read through 7.
Look at this. I can't even keep up on my assignments. All right, so I'm 10 pages. Okay, so I will definitely do that. I thought it was. I'm sorry. Anyway, I do remember that from the first time I read the book, but I can't wait to read it again because I will pay attention to all of the details that you just spoke of.
No, so that part you'll reread. But I love that scene, and it's right before the scene where Jesus and Mac go out into the back and lay on the ground with their backs, and they're looking up at the stars. Remember that from the first?
I do, yes.
What a beautiful scene! And
yeah, so that I look forward to reading that. Chapter 7, and the chapter 7 is not too long, so thankfully I'm not that far away from you. Mm-hmm. But that is really food for thought because, we do that all the time with children and we don't even realize we do that,
Yeah, I mean, I believe the closer, for instance, people can interact with kids 2 ways. You can interact with kids as you're the authority, do what I say because I said it, and I know better because I'm older and smarter or whatever. That coming from that place. And that's not limiting yourself. That's showing superiority. And therefore the child doesn't have barely has any connection with you because you're just, not that you should be on the same level as your kids, but to connect deeply with someone, you have to have not only empathy, but you have to come down or be at their level. You have to limit yourself to connect. It's like the great bosses. You could have a CEO a very wealthy CEO of a company who is adored by their workers and that feel that they can be friends and that they connect. And the reason why that happens is that that person is able to limit their power, limit themselves in a way, in a loving way, so that they could connect on a deeper level. And I find this true with, people that might have bigger, better jobs than I do, make more money, more influence, more powerful. And there are people that I know that I connect to, and they connect to me. It's not that they're coming down to my level, but they're limiting their egos, they're limiting their statures in a way that I can connect to. And they do it on purpose. And those are the people that people respond to. And so that's the child and adult type relationship. If you're playing a game with a child, you don't always have to win. Obviously, we all know this. And letting them win, or loving the art even though it's imperfect, allowing yourself to color outside the lines with your child, laughing at mistakes, not always having to be right. These are all things that are limiting, but they're done for a reason. They're done to connect. And that's what God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit were doing at that table, eating dinner. And also the reason why, in my opinion, and God even said, he was the big black Jamaican woman on purpose, because it allowed the relationship to have a deeper connection rather than this God figure, the grandfather figure with the powerful, gray beard and, it's God, the picture of God. By God choosing a Jamaican woman, really allowed the connection on a deeper level.
Yeah.
So that's sort of a lesson in itself. And that could be a question we pose, one of the questions that we pose about self-limiting, like the bird, in a way to connect, not to keep you down or not to, it's just having compassion or humility in a way that, you limit yourself so that you can connect with somebody. Not always having to be right. Not always having to brag about what you have or try to make yourself better and always, speak of your accomplishments. That's not self-limiting. So maybe that could be a question that we pose, at the end of this. Do you think, maybe perhaps, do you feel as though self-limiting could make you connect on a deeper level, even in a loving relationship,
with anyone in your life, in other words.
With anyone in your life.
Yeah.
Because really that's how Mac eventually comes around. Because, in that scene out in the back in chapter 7, when he's staring at the sky, he says, I don't know, I just feel so close to you, Mac says to Jesus. And Jesus says, because I am human, I am the closest, we have a connection. We have a human connection. And we connect on a human level. And he was saying that, God is so different. God is so, it's hard to figure out God, And so I think the reason, and I connected with Jesus, by the way, in this book in a big way. I like the fact, and I like the fact that Jesus wasn't, handsome. Like Mac even commented on Jesus's big nose and how he thought Jesus would be more of an ideal male, sort of like a Greek, like the David, amazing muscles. He really wasn't like that. He was just sort of, And then Jesus said, the more you get to love the Spirit or me, the less the external appearances will get in the way. You fall in love with the soul, not the look.
Right.
And, that was a pretty scene too. So self-limiting, that's something that can just be a general comment. And
I also like when they talk about how when you feel pain, perhaps you lose sight of me. So I wonder if people, when they feel pain or they're going through really hard times, if they feel more like disappointment in God because they feel as though their situation could, that God influences their situation, or if in fact they turn to God to, seek help. Like, I know that when things are rough or I'm going through something, I find that not that I'm closer to God, but I'm more like, I know that you'll make everything be okay. I pray and I ask for your help, and I know that there's a reason for this, even though I don't see it now. But for many people, they turn the other way, why? Why would you do this? Many people, actually. And, listen, if I had real tragedy, I don't know how I would feel. Like, look at Mac lost Missy, I don't know how I would feel. I don't know how I would be able to handle that and come to a place of peace and feel as though, it happened because it had to happen. That has to be really hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
With the little things in life that we struggle with, I find that I don't react that way, but I'm wondering if there's anyone who you really had to deal with a great loss or tragedy, like a real tragedy, and how they handled it, whether that turned them toward God or away. At this point, if you're reading the book with us, all right, you're back on track, you know what I mean? But right. I just wonder.
Yeah, that's something to think about. I think that you go through all the stages. Go through the anger, and you go through why me, why him, or why her, and if you were there for me, why would you do this if you're always there for me? You know what I mean? And then I guess faith comes in at some point, and a belief that, things happen for a reason.
Right.
We're going to get into that further into the book.
Yes, right. And like God said, if I was anything but love, if there was any piece of me that wasn't love, we would be a mess.
I know.
Everything would be a mess. I have to be. I am only love.
Right. And he said, you experience love because of me.
Right, because I am love.
I am nothing but it.
Right, and like when Mac and God were talking about how Jesus healed the blind, and God was telling Mac, like, it wasn't Jesus, human. He believed so deeply that he healed the blind man, but it was me who healed through him. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was because he allowed it. Jesus was open enough, but it was God. Like, he kind of is like, make no mistake that wasn't me.
Yeah, I know.
People feel like if they do something good, and he kind of said, or she kind of said, which doesn't necessarily is all that good. They think it's like godly. That's not godly. Like, it was interesting. I thought that part was interesting.
Yeah, it's because of God that Jesus is able to do what he does.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So it's just, there are just so many things to think about in these chapters, and so many different discussions that they have, and feelings and emotions. And like, even when God had the scars on his wrists, and he tells Mac, I never left you, and I never left my son, I never left Jesus. I never leave anyone, despite what you think. You just don't understand yet.
Right.
And God started crying.
Right.
So
on a general level, how are you feeling on a general level? Do you feel as though, so after reading these chapters, what is your relationship with God? Is it any different? Is it more formal? Is it less formal? Is it, does it make you feel comfort in knowing, like, first of all, this book is written as the truth, right? This is the accounts of what had happened to Mac.
Right.
And so this book gives me great comfort because it quiets the cynical side of myself that says, who might doubt every once in a while. You know what I mean?
Of course.
We all doubt.
And because there's always that what if. Like, you believe and you believe and you believe, and then but we don't know. So,
And sometimes we're not as open and present to the signs around us that validates, this. But a book comes along like The Shack, and, I guess the book, well, we don't want to tell we can't really talk about the ending, but we'll get there down the road. But this book is written as the truth, but it's left as a little bit possible it never happened. Right?
Right.
And we'll talk about that later. But there's some very, very, very strong evidence that it did happen, especially towards the end. And so for me, that's enough. That's all I need. Not that I needed it, but it's just another check in the column of, aha, I knew it, And so after rereading this book, The Shack, especially chapters 4 through 7, I feel reconnected to being flawed, being human, that Jesus is too, and that God is allowing us to love as deeply as Jesus does. And that's nice. You know what I mean? Even though I have reasons not to, or even though I have reasons that people did against me, that maybe I don't want to love you as much, And it's even like, divorced people or people who are in and out of relationships and really are pissed and really hate the person. You can really love that person. It's possible, even though they screwed you over or even though they were so not nice, whatever the term. Jesus says, I feel more able to forgive and love unconditionally. And not because it's easy. Listen, it's easy to love unconditionally the people that are easy to love. Right? Your children, your husband sometimes, your wife or whatever, girlfriend. But the people that are hard to love, that's the real test. And for me, after reading chapters 4 through 7, I feel, because God was hard to love. It was hard to love God in Mac's eyes. And, I guess rightfully so on his part. So for me, I feel as though I'm getting closer to be able to love unconditionally, even the people that are hard to love. And that's what I'm getting at.
You seem to forget this, but you always forgive. You don't remember when we went through this a few years ago where we were talking about this, and this was like an important part of where we were at, and you really made an effort to make amends or just put effort into making whatever relationship that you had that maybe wasn't on the best of terms just peaceful and pleasant. Do you remember now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you I don't think you realize, but you really don't. I think you do forgive, quickly.
Yeah, I do. But love unconditionally is going deeper, right?
Well, that's hard, though. Don't you think that's hard to love everyone unconditionally?
We're right. It is hard. I'm not saying it's easy.
It's hard because...
But I'm saying I'm moving closer to that. Listen, I'm never going to get I imagine I'm never going to get to the point where I can do that. But boy, does it feel good to feel like you can get closer to it.
Right. Now, that's a little different, though. Forgiving and loving unconditionally. Like forgiveness, you can forgive and then just avoid.
Listen, you hear the expression, I forgive, but I'm not going to forget.
Yeah, right.
Are you really forgiving, honestly? And then if you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, of course not.
Did Max say, I love you, God, but I'm never going to forget? Or, vice versa, God says, well, Mackenzie, you screwed up. You killed your father, but, I could forgive, but I'm never going to forget.
Right.
There's not those...
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
All right, finish. I'm sorry. Finish.
No, I don't, no.
You're okay. Okay. why do you think bad things happen? Like, why do you think? I guess because we have free will, like because we have freedom. Is that what it is? Humans have freedom. He kind of said Adam messed it all up when he decided to go on his own.
Yeah, it's imperfect. They tried to make a imperfect situation as perfect as they could.
Okay, so it kind of got messed up with Adam. But
yes.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
But like, think about it. I mean, I don't know. There are so many things that are so off, and it's...
Well, free will can be evil.
Well, it is. I think because we have freedom, we choose. So we choose which path, and not everyone makes the right choice. So,
Because Matt questions whether it was free will for him to even be at the shack.
Right, exactly.
Did I decide to come?
Why things go the way they go? Because people have free will and they get to choose, and you can choose to be very. I don't even want to say good, but I guess it's godlike and good and kind or not, right? Because we can choose.
Right.
So I know,
but so I'm trying to get the bigger. I mean, I already love the story. And it's such a pleasure to read it again. And I'm trying to be present when I read it about how I'm feeling, how it makes me feel, what parts move me and why. And, it's going to be different for everyone. And so that's what I'm getting out of this so far is that, I love the informalness of the relationships. I love the humor and the, the ability to laugh even at mistakes. And I love the fact that, it opens up the thought process of you can really, really love people, even the hard, unconditionally. At least that's the goal. So,
Well, I can't wait to hear everyone else's thoughts. This was such a turn in the book, there's just so much here. So I can't wait to hear how other people connect and what their thoughts are.
Are you closing us down? I guess you're closing us down.
Yeah, I am closing us down.
Yeah, we have to close it down.
I feel like this was such a great section, and I think that it's, it's time for people to start typing in and
responding.
Responding and telling us and everyone on there their thoughts. It was such a great experience last week to read what others were feeling and what they've been through and how they've changed their paths. And that was so enjoyable. This week I really look forward to it. And I know it's Valentine's Day, so it may be a little difficult, but there were quite a few people who caught up during the week.
Absolutely. And we're going to post this. I think I'm going to post this on Saturday night, the day before Valentine's Day. And this way people can go online anytime between Saturday and Sunday, and they can post whatever they want. And we'll make an announcement on Twitter and Facebook when we're going to be online to live chat. But I believe that, you don't even need to wait for us to post. Go on there, write, react, pose a question for us, and we'll go on and we will respond.
Right. Steve and I check every day. So even, we'll definitely have a time where we're on and we're on there together and we can respond immediately, but we check every day, one of us or both of us. So if you post, we'll see it within 24 hours.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you're on the site, put your email address in the homepage, because we're doing a Valentine contest this weekend where we're giving away a life coach session and also premium subscription. So it's free. You can just put your email address in, and we're going to pick someone randomly two people randomly, one for life coaching and one for premium subscriber. And we'll announce that on Valentine's Day. Everything's happening on Valentine's Day, Michelle.
Yeah, you like Valentine's Day.
I'm getting into Valentine's Day. I love Valentine's Day.
You like it.
In fact, I had, what I had? I feel like this is the show because we're talking. I had a box of Russell Stover Valentine's
Excellent.
Day. Yeah. Oh, no. I did.
Good for you.
Yep. So anyway, thanks for joining us. We're so excited to be doing the book talk. And believe you me, chapters 8, 9, 10, 11. Right, Michelle? Is that our next thing? 8, 9, 10, 11?
Yep, and go up to 12. So in that I'm clear. Read through chapter 11.
Yes, you want to read chapter 11.
I messed that up.
11. Yeah, you want to stop after 11. Do not read 12, everybody. Okay? And we'll see everyone here next Sunday for those chapters. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you're living your best life. Good night.
Good night.